when I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Jameson Williams has been so impressive these last couple of weeks.
What's going on, draft fans? Welcome back to Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast. I'm your host, Russell Brown. Been a minute. Haven't done a show in a while, and that's what normally happens when you wrap up the 2022 NFL Draft. You start studying guys from the preseason. You get ready for the 2023 NFL Draft. You start watching offensive tackles like Cooper Beebe out of Kansas State, who's probably going to be a guard at the next level. We're already jumping into stuff like that, but we are entering week one of the of the college football season, and we're entering week one of the NFL as well next week, next Thursday. I know the Cover One Buffalo podcast, those guys are going to have you covered with all kinds of Buffalo Bill stuff, as well as my guy Anthony with the Disguise coverage. So be sure to check out those podcasts as well as every other podcast that we have here on the Cover One network. There is so much engagement, so much happening. You guys, of course, can check it out on YouTube. Check it out over at cover1.net. You can rate, review, subscribe to any show. The more ratings, the more reviews, the more subscriptions we get, the more content that we can provide you. So yeah, I mean, it's not just Bills content. It's all type of content from the NFL and, of course, where I kind of thrive with college football and the NFL Draft. So we're going to jump into it because, again, it's week one. I'm recording on a Wednesday night, getting ready for Thursday. Big slate of games here on Thursday night that I honestly just cannot wait to get after. Central Michigan at Oklahoma State on FS1 at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. West Virginia at Pittsburgh. We're going to break down that game a little bit, the backyard brawl, if you will. We also have Ball State at Tennessee. Maybe we get intrigued with the little over-under action on that one. Over 68, under 68, we'll see. But, Penn State, Purdue's another big one on Thursday night. And then on Friday, there's a couple of big ones. Virginia Tech at Old Dominion is an intriguing game because Old Dominion's at home. Va Tech, their defense always has been a pretty good defense, so we'll see what happens there. But Illinois at Indiana, TCU at Colorado at 10 o'clock on ESPN, and then Western Michigan at Michigan State. The only top 25 team playing on Friday is my Michigan State Spartans, or are my Michigan State Spartans, I should say. But no, look, great slate of games. We've got 5 days of college football action. I'm going to try to pack in as much as I can over the next 2 to 3 days podcast-wise. Tonight, just going to focus briefly on Thursday and Friday night stuff. Probably not going to get into a bunch of Tanner Morgan conversation for anybody that's wondering. Out of Minnesota, they're playing New Mexico State, and Tanner Morgan's been playing for like 17 years at Minnesota, but Sean Clifford's also been playing for like 17 years at Penn State, so we're going to dive into that game. But like I said, we're going to get into to 3, maybe 4 games tonight, and just kind of get you ready for Thursday, get you ready for Friday, get you juiced up. But before we do, I got a lot of great stuff to give you guys as far as fantasy football. Look, I did an auction draft tonight. First time I've ever done one. Had no idea what was going on. Didn't really know the process. I wish I would have done a little bit more studying with it. And if I would have used Underdog Fantasy. Look, guys, if you have your own home league, you're with your buddies, whatever, you're doing your thing, you're doing your draft each year, and it's just not enough for you, then Underdog Fantasy is for you. All the fun of drafting your own players, but without the waivers and the lineup decisions. Best ball drafts allow you to have all the fun of drafting your team. All the chances to win big with none of the week-to-week hassle, just lineup after lineup after lineup. And the best part is they're going to make 3 of their players within every lineup that they have. They're going to make them millionaires. That's right, $10 million in total prizes, $2 million to first place, $1 million to second, and $1 million bonus to the team with the most regular season points. There's 3 chances to win $1 million. All you have to do is sign up now using the promo code COVER1. You can take that chance at $1 million today with Underdog Fantasy. Again, if you use the promo code COVER1 when signing up to make your first deposit, Underdog will match you up to $100 on that initial deposit. So that's $100 in free play if you deposit $100. So all you have to do is go over to UnderdogFantasy.com, use promo code COVER1, and you will be on your way to having all the fantasy football fun that you want, but also very well potentially getting after $1 million. So check it out today over at UnderdogFantasy.com using promo code COVER1. Like I said, a lot to get into here. So we're going to jump into 2 games on Thursday, tomorrow night, depending on when you're listening to this. Again, I'm recording on a Wednesday. But we're going to jump into Penn State, Purdue, West Virginia, Pitt. We'll get into briefly on Friday stuff because, again, I'm going to probably record again Thursday afternoon, evening, right before kickoff. I'll dive into a little bit more of Friday stuff, and then obviously into some Saturday stuff. And at some point, I'll jump into some Sunday, Monday stuff as well. But again, 5 days of action. I'm going to do the best I can here. I'm a one-man podcast. I'm a one-man band. I'm going to do what I can. But Penn State, Purdue is a game that I'm so intrigued with because there is so much involved in this game. So many people, and maybe it's because I live in the heart of Big Ten country. I'm a Midwest guy, big Michigan State fan, as you all know. But Penn State has been the team that just lets you down year in and year out. James Franklin, good football coach, decent head coach. I'm going to just say that. Decent head coach. He makes a lot of bonehead decisions. He does it time after time. You look at his bowl game against Arkansas. Didn't even feel like they showed up. He lost to Michigan State at Michigan State. They had that game, let it slip away, lost to Michigan, had the tough loss to Ohio State, lost to Iowa, lost to Illinois in overtime. Just a coach that starts off hot and then just ends up, you know what, just crapping himself. And you start 5-0 and you end up 7-6. If you don't think that seat's a little hot, regardless of the contract extension, look, the Big Ten's about to get a ton of money. So especially Penn State, they don't care about the money. They don't care about what they owe James Franklin. If he's going to go 5-0 and then 2-6 down the stretch, you can find somebody else to do that. You could find Scott Frost to do that. He just did that against Northwestern. You can find another coach. So Penn State, as good as Franklin may be to some, he is truly not a very good game manager. He makes boneheaded decisions, bad timeouts late in games. On the contrary here, a lot of people want to talk about Purdue. They're the home dog. Can they get this done? I don't know. I mean, you look at Purdue, you look at this, you look at that football team, good football team, but they lost a lot of pieces this past year, and I just wonder, is it too much for them to overcome? I mean, Aiden O'Connell, he comes back, had 28 touchdowns last year, second team All-Big Ten honors, 3,700 passing yards, but they lost David Bell, they lost Xander Horvath, the running back, they lost George Karlaftis. They lost some pieces there. DeMarcus Mitchell, also the other defensive end is who they lost. Again, they lost a lot of pieces here, and I just don't know if I can trust Purdue week 1 of the year against a Penn State team, because this is a spot where Penn State takes everybody's money, and when I look at this, I mean, the rushing attack for Penn State's got to get better. Kayvon Lee, the sophomore running back, had 530 yards last year. He's got another season under his belt. I think he can get a little bit closer to 800-900 yards. And sure, this rushing attack was ranked 13th in the Big Ten last year. Penn State's was 107.8 yards per game, 118th ranked nationally. but they can get better. I mean, senior center Juice Scruggs is a fun name, but also an experienced player that they bring back. They bring back their right tackle, Caden Wallace, who has his struggles and things like that. But again, an experienced right tackle for them, experienced offensive lineman. They bring back Sean Clifford, like I mentioned, 17 years at Penn State. It's not really 17 years, but he's been there a very long time. He's a career leader with 60.3% his completion percentage. One of only 3 quarterbacks at Penn State to throw for over 7,500 yards. Not really saying much. Like I said, it took him a long time to do that. But he had 21 touchdowns last year. Clifford can get it done from time to time. Jahan Dotson is gone, but Parker Washington's going to slide right in. He's got over 100 receptions for his career, over 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. Very fun receiver, and is going to kind of be that next Penn State receiver that we've seen over the years. I mean, we've seen it with Dotson, and we've seen it with Deshaun Hamilton. We've seen it with certain receivers. KJ Hamler's another one. We've seen it with these receivers. So Washington's going to come back, and he's going to play well as long as he's healthy. And defensively, I mean, they've got a very fun secondary. Kalen King and Jalen Reed, the safeties, or corner and safety, 21 games combined starts between the two of them. That's experience. Jair Brown intercepted 6 passes last season, was tied for the FBS lead all across college football. I know Jaquan Brisker's gone. I know Arnold Ebiketti's gone. But you bring back Brown. You bring back Joey Porter Jr. on the outside. A lot of people like Joey Porter Jr., NFL bloodlines. So when I look at this, Penn State, they were -3 this morning. Money line, they were like -160. I think that this is one of those where they start off on the right foot. Last year, they beat Wisconsin on the road to start the season. Here they are at Purdue, not the toughest place to play, not an easy place to play at 8 o'clock at night, but not the toughest. And, you're going to sit there and tell me that Payne Durham and Aiden O'Connell are going to be the guys that get it done? Could they? Sure. Payne Durham could very well be one of the better tight ends in the Big Ten. Aiden O'Connell could very well be one of the more productive quarterbacks in the Big Ten. But this is a Purdue team that, they lost at Notre Dame last year. They lost to Minnesota. They lost to Wisconsin, a team that Penn State beat early in the year. They lost to Ohio State. I know they beat Michigan State. And look, the big numbers to obviously to pay attention to percentage-wise. 37.1%. Purdue held opponents to a 37.1 percentage on third down conversion rate. 19th best in all of FBS defenses. But Penn State ranked third in defensive finishing drives, allowing 2.97 points per quality possessions. The Nittany Lions recovered 3 fumbles and intercepted 6 passes on those possessions last season. So they can create turnovers. And when you have a quarterback like Aiden O'Connell, who's going to drop back and throw 400-plus times a season, and essentially you're talking close to 35 to 40 times a game, he's bound to make mistakes. I mean, he had 11 interceptions last year. If you don't think Jair Brown could potentially pick him off, or Joey Porter Jr., I mean, I would beg to differ. And keep in mind, I mean, Penn State, a pretty good recruiting class. They had 3 5-star recruits, according to 24/7 Sports, and then they brought in 10 4-star recruits. Not all these guys are going to play. Not all these guys are going to make impacts right away, but there's some of those guys are going to play. And in week 1, whether these guys are conditioned or not, some of these guys are going to make the plays, and these guys are going to make a difference. So, look, I'm settling for a guy like a Parker Washington. I'm settling for the experience of a Sean Clifford. I really think Kayvon Lee can take a step in the right direction. And again, defensively, I like what I've seen. Linebacker Curtis Jacobs is somebody very well could be circled in the linebacker group from Penn State that, every year they're developing linebackers, it feels like. And when you look at Purdue, they've got some experience. They've done some things well. Milton Wright's back. He had seven touchdowns last year. But again, I'm going off what I feel, and I could be wrong. +3, +3.5, Purdue, parlay, I'd probably take it. But straight up, my gut says Penn State. So we'll see what happens, but that's Thursday. The other Thursday game, did a lot of research for this one because I think I'm just as excited for this one as I am for Penn State and Purdue, but West Virginia Pitt, and that's because it's the backyard brawl. Also because West Virginia, their get-ups here is just, it's sick. I mean, the whole thing is sick. It's like the outline of West Virginia with the numbers in the middle. It's all white. I like all whites, helmets, jerseys, pants, the whole nine. And obviously, like, just the whole design in itself, it's sick. So I think West Virginia is going to be a fun team to watch tomorrow night. But Pitt's got kind of the stars here, right? I mean, Caden Slovis is coming over from USC. He's the transfer, former Pac-12 freshman of the year. He completed 68% of his passes in 3 seasons with the Trojans. But, I mean, he struggles to make throws from sideline to sideline. Those sideline throws he struggles with. He does a lot of underneath throws, a lot of stuff, the short yardage stuff. He hopes for stuff after the catch. And I think if West Virginia can take that away, he might struggle in his first start for Pitt. And again, this is a rivalry. It's being reunited. It's being reignited, I should say. So we'll see. But if he's going to throw underneath Slovis, if he's going to throw underneath a lot, Jared Wayne could be the receiver to watch. Jordan Addison's gone. He transferred to USC. But Wayne had 47 receptions last year for almost 660 yards and 6 touchdowns. He did a lot of stuff underneath, a lot of stuff over the middle last year for Kenny Pickett. He catches away from his 6'3" frame consistently. And in an offense that I think obviously needs a number one receiver now that Addison is gone, I think, Jared Wayne at 6'3" could very well be that guy. So we'll see. Father was a linebacker in the CFL. Wayne was born and raised in Canada. We'll kind of see what that does. But for the NFL draft folks out there, but for this matchup, I'm really intrigued with it. And then just defensively for them, Servoka Dennis, linebacker, senior linebacker, 87 tackles, 9.5 tackles for loss, and 4 sacks last season. I think first week for Pitt here against West Virginia, very explosive first step for Dennis. He's got the ability to flow sideline to sideline. Very fun player. I think he could be a difference maker for Pitt off the edge or just in the middle of that defense. And then real quick, just keep tabs on Marcus Minor, the senior left guard, number 55, had 17 starts at Maryland. Then he went to Pitt last year. He transferred. He had 13 starts at left guard. So we're talking about a player with 30 starts. He's an experienced player, has very good first step, follows through with his hands. I like guys with quick feet, especially at guard. That just kind of indicates to me that they probably have the ability to pull, get out of their stance, get out of the block a little bit. I think Marcus Minor is worth keeping tabs on, especially here week 1 against West Virginia, because he's got a tough task in front of him. Dante Stills, defensive tackle 55. We finally get to talk about this guy because there is no more going back for him. I mean, this is it, the last hurrah for him. A lot of people are surprised he's still there, myself included. Experienced player for the Mountaineers. He's their leader. 7 sacks last year. He gets after it. And he's part of a pass defense that's certainly one of the better units in the Big 12. I think if that unit is on and they force Slovis into some tough spots, I think Dante Stills, whether he's matched up against Marcus Minor or somebody else, I think Dante Stills could very well put himself in a position to feast here week 1 against Pittsburgh. The other one off the edge or off that defensive line is Taj Alston, edge rusher number 12. He's a senior, similar to Stills, been in college for a very long time. He initially committed to East Carolina, had been there for a while, went to a community college, had the COVID year, had a knee injury in 2019. He's been at West Virginia for 3 seasons. He had 11 tackles for loss last year, though. So he's kind of getting healthy, getting into his own, into his own body and playing his role. 11 tackles for loss, like I mentioned. So I think he's an intriguing player. Got really good length for the position with long arms, has experience, might not be flashy, but, he gets it done off the edge at times. So I think Alston, West Virginia, worth keeping tabs on as well. Then just real quick offensively for West Virginia, going to be a toss-up. I mean, their offense struggled last year, but Lynn-J Dixon, running back number 17, is senior. He's a Clemson transfer. I think he's got some ability to become kind of that home run threat, if I might add to that. I mean, he could surprise some people with the ability to break one, and I think he could ease his way into more of a 50-50 split in the backfield with Tony Mathis Jr., especially now that Letty Brown is gone. So, I mean, I know this rushing attack was, near the bottom of college football last year, ranked 102 in FBS, but 123 average on the ground. I think Dixon might be able to break a 40, 50-yard run. We'll see. I mean, Pitt's got, consistently a pretty good defense with Narduzzi, so we'll see. But Dixon, I think, is the offensive player to maybe star in this game as a senior. And again, a former Clemson player, maybe just looking for that opportunity. Maybe he gets it here. Lastly, can JT Daniels get West Virginia's offense going? They struggled last year to score some points. They were held under 20 points or less 6 times last season. It feels like Daniels, though, similar to some of these guys that we've already talked about, been playing football forever, was part of USC, part of Georgia. Now he's singing Country Roads, Take Me Home. So we'll see. I mean, JT Daniels, we haven't seen him play in a long time. So he's one of those guys that kind of gives you, maybe if you're a West Virginia fan, maybe hope, former 5-star recruit. You just kind of hope that this guy puts it all together for you. You can only hope. We'll see what happens there. But, now we're going to jump into Friday's games. We're immediately going to the game that I want to talk about for Friday, and that's Western Michigan at Michigan State. It's only fair. It's my show. I do what I want. But, look, I'm not too worried about this game, I don't think. I could be eating these words. I don't know. Really, the only thing that worries me is just the backfield that Western Michigan has. I mean, it's fairly dynamic in a way. Sean Tyler and Ladarius Jefferson, this 50-50 split that these guys have, very consistent, very productive. Tyler had 178 carries for 1,100 yards and 9 touchdowns last year. Jefferson had 185 carries for 836 yards and 10 touchdowns last year. So these guys can run the football. That worries me in a sense and to a degree, because if they can put some drives together and keep the Michigan State offense off the field, that worries me a little bit about a Michigan State defense that, look, I'll just say it like it is. I mean, last year, at times, the Michigan State defense struggled to get off the field. They really did. I mean, from Cal Holiday up the middle. I don't know. Darius Snow, can these guys play and do their job? Jacob Slade is the senior on the defensive line that a lot of people are going to be looking to. Ronald Williams started playing well later in the year. They obviously got Aaron Brule, Chris Bogle. These two guys, transfer linebackers, should make an impact, but they lost, by far the biggest impact of them all. Kenneth Walker's gone. I mean, we're talking about Walter Camp National Player of the Year, number 2 in the nation with over 1,600 rushing yards. I mean, can they make it happen with Jalen Berger? We'll see. Fingers crossed. That's the hope here. Fortunately, they keep Peyton Thorne. They got Jaden Reed back, which was huge. 3rd-team All-Big Ten player, punt returner, just kick returner, kind of an all-around type of guy. Put the ball in his hands, good things happen. He had over 1,000 yards receiving last year, 10 touchdowns. They had a pretty decent recruiting class. Offensively, you can't really be worried about it, but defensively, again, the passing attack was brutal. Ranked 130 in the country last year. Total defense was ranked 111. Defensively, they've got to get better, and that's what worries me. Rushing defense, they could be okay. Ranked 15th in the country, but if that duo wears Michigan State down, is there somehow, some way, a passing attack gets going? Some no-name guys We'll see. I mean, they don't have the big-name quarterback. They don't have a star there. So you would have to think Michigan State can get it done. They were 20-point favorites this morning. I would assume it's going to stay that way. I should probably look that up, but I'm going to assume it's going to stay that way. I would keep tabs, though, on Michigan State wide receiver Keon Coleman and Trey Mosley. Coleman, 6'4", very physical receiver. He really showed some ability last year to high point the football and some ability to kind of run after the catch. When you're 6'4" and you can run and you're an athlete like that, you're gonna turn some heads. So again, offensively, I think they'll be okay. Defensively is where it's got to get better, and I worry a little bit. Defensive coordinator Scotty Hazelton, he's got to get this pass defense down. He's got to get them off the field on third down. We will see. Michigan State, though, ranked 15th in the country. They open the season, Western Michigan and Akron, and then they go to Washington before they play Minnesota and open up Big Ten play. Look, I'm not nervous. I think the projection of 8-4, 9-3 makes a lot of sense. Fingers crossed for 10-2, and hopefully one of those wins is against Michigan. We'll see. My Michigan State Spartans open the season Friday against the Western Michigan Broncos. We'll see how that plays out Friday evening at 7 o'clock. And then we'll end it here. TCU at Colorado, the late game on Friday, 10 o'clock on ESPN. I feel like I just need to touch this game because there is a couple of draft prospects to kind of pay attention to, and they're not really on the Colorado side of things. I mean, Brady Russell, the tight end, is maybe somebody that you may want to pay attention to at the tight end position, fourth-year starter type deal. Maybe Guy Thomas, the defensive end. He's a senior, but he was hurt last year, but he's coming back, so maybe. But, I mean, this team lost a lot of players. They lost 22 players to the transfer portal. They've lost some coaches, and 6 of their coaches are gone. So Colorado's going to be, man, they're on the struggle bus. They were one of the worst offenses in the country last year. They averaged 18.8 points per game. They struggled just in any area, defensively as well. I mean, overall, their total defense was ranked 98th in the country. They're playing against a TCU football team that, while they make some changes themselves, I think when you look at it, TCU just on paper makes a lot of sense. And there's a reason to why they make sense, because TCU, if you wanted to bet on it, they're 13-point favorites right now. I mean, they make sense. But they bring back receiver Quentin Johnson, who might be one of the better receivers in the country when it's all said and done. Johnson had 634 yards receiving last year, 6 touchdowns, and 33 receptions. But they bring back all these guys. Darius Davis, who led the team in receptions at 36. Tay Barber, who had 514 yards receiving, he's back. They bring back a lot of talent offensively on the perimeter. They're going to be able to throw. And like I mentioned, Colorado struggled in so many different areas that it just doesn't matter. Like TCU is going to be able to play. They're going to be able to put up points. And you look at what they did last year to start the year. 45 in week 1, 34 and 34. Whether it's against no talent or not, I mean, they can score. They scored 28.7 points per game last year. So I think TCU minus 13 is like easy money. But when I mention prospects, when I talk about players, D. Winter's the linebacker, experienced linebacker for them out of TCU, 33 games played. He's going to be probably the most key player defensively, at least in the middle of that defense. I know in the secondary they bring back Hodges Tomlinson, the corner, who had a really good year last year. He had 2 interceptions for them as well, and he's a fun prospect. If you're looking for 2023 defensive backs for the NFL draft, he could very well be a player that starts shooting up draft boards. And the funny thing, aside from Winters and Tomlinson, and yes, Hodges Tomlinson is related to LT LaDainian Tomlinson, but the funny thing is safety Mark Perry for TCU, former Colorado player. He's one of the 22 players that transferred. So, just when you look at this game on paper, if you're looking at DraftKings or FanDuel or wherever you're looking at your sports betting websites, TCU minus 13, I feel like, is just an easy play. I could be wrong, but I think it's an easy play even if they are on the road. But Friday games, I'm going to be very much tuned in to Michigan State, and then when that game wraps up, I'm tuning in to TCU Colorado. And then, like I mentioned, for Thursday, West Virginia Pitt, the backyard brawl, Penn State at Purdue. If you want my picks on this, I'll give them to you. We went over a lot of players here, from Slovis, Dennis, Wayne, Minor on Pitt. We talked a little bit about Kayvon Lee. We talked about Parker Washington, fun player that operates in and out of the slot, does a lot of stuff operating over the middle. But if you want my picks on this, you want some bets, you want to play, you want to do a little parlay, I would take Penn State money line. I like West Virginia. They were plus 8.5 when I saw it earlier this morning. I like TCU minus 13 when I saw that this morning. And I'll put in a little prop bet for you because I don't think I trust Michigan State enough at minus 21. I could just see myself getting burnt and then winning by 17 or something. But Jalen Berger over 0.5 rushing touchdowns was minus 105. So you want to sprinkle that in. Could be a little fun bet for you to start week 1 of the college football season. I'm going to get into other week 1 stuff tomorrow for Saturday, and I'm going to try to sprinkle in some Sunday, Monday stuff, but I don't know if I'll be able to. We'll do my best on it, but it's been great back here on the Cover 1 NFL Draft Podcast. Again, college football's back. We can finally talk prospects. People will actually care. We can watch games. I can only do so much with the 2021 film, and we got to start seeing who's playing, who's not playing for some of these teams. So if you would be so kind, please rate, review, subscribe to the show, add us into the mix. Go to Underdog Fantasy, put in the promo code Cover1, deposit $100. They're going to match it for you. You could potentially become a millionaire. Don't forget about me when you do. But again, this was a lot of fun. Week 1 college football kicking off tomorrow, Thursday night. We got a lot of fun stuff coming down the pipeline here. So keep it here, Cover 1 NFL Draft Podcast. Until next time, we will talk to you tomorrow night here on the Cover 1 NFL Draft Podcast.